Hey everybody, in my last video I explained what Judaism did at its beginning to ensure that the religion would take root and continue, and the reason why the Jewish people rejected Jesus. And if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it at the end for you. This video I want to explain what Christianity did from its much longer beginnings to ensure that the religion would take root and survive, and how the church set it up so that if we want to follow Jesus and go to heaven, we must go through them. So let's go back to October 28th, the year 312, when a battle took place that is affecting what we see on CNN and Fox News today. Constantine the Great had marched his army against Rome, defeating his brother-in-law's army, who was killed in the battle, which probably didn't win him any popularity points with his sister. But anyway, the next year, Constantine legalized Christianity, which ended the persecution. And 12 years later, he called a group of 300-some church bishops and theologians to be guests of the state at his palace for the Council of Nicaea. Now, out of this council came two big things. First was a marriage of church-state. So with the wealth and power of the state now backing the Christian religion, Constantine started building cathedrals, and ultimately all parishes ended up with a church and a parish priest. The second thing is the Nicene Creed, which is like the founding document of Orthodox Christianity, and was to be recited together in unison by all, confessing that we believe in the Trinity and that Jesus came to earth, born of a virgin, to die and save us, and pledging our lives to the Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. Constantine died 12 years later, but the partnership of church-state that he had forged continued on. Now, you could still be any religion you wanted to be, but all that changed 50 years after the Council of Nicaea, when a new emperor signed a law mandating every citizen of the Roman Empire to convert to Catholic Christianity or face whatever punishment the church state decides to inflict, which evolved ultimately into the Inquisition period, where anyone who didn't accept the authority and doctrines of the church and the creeds would be tortured or burned at the stake. Now, I explained in my last video how Moses set up a system using the law of God, saying, this is what God wants you to believe and do. And in order to administer the system to the people, he set up a ruling council and a hierarchy of priests and judges. And anyone who did not obey the system could be stoned to death. And the architects of Christianity used the exact same playbook, even though it was over a period of centuries. But they gave the Nicene Creed saying, this is what you are to believe. And they set up a hierarchy of priests, from the parish priests all the way up, bishops, archbishops, up to the Pope. And the Pope and the cardinals and the kings would be the ruling council who would rule over everything. And if you didn't obey, you would ultimately be burned at the stake. So the kings basically owned the bodies of the people and used the people to get taxes and to have them fight their wars for them. And the church basically owned the minds and the souls of the people and would extract tithes from them. So the kings and the church, they were in bed together, using the systems to extort and to control the common people. Now imagine being born back then, before modern communication, travel, or the internet, and we're baptized into the system before we know what's going on. And we're taught growing up that the church is God's representative here on earth. And the sacraments and the holy days, I mean, they provide a great deal of comfort and, fun for us. So children are born into the system and grow up in the system, accept the system as their truth, reality, and identity, and defend the system and pass it on to their children. And this is the reason why once any belief system is firmly established in the minds of one generation, and it's been woven into the fabric of the culture, well, it takes on a life of its own and becomes a self-perpetuating system of belief that gives us our perception of reality, and it will go on perpetually until we see how the system works. Now, the Catholic hierarchy knew this and even had a saying that said, "Give me a child until they are 7 and I will give you the man." Because they knew that if they could use guilt, shame, and fear of God and the devil and heaven and hell and you're sinful into that child's mind and get them to trust in the sacraments and traditions and rituals of the church, that this would become the program that would subconsciously control the child's mind all their lives, and they would never dare question what they had been taught. But here's why I believe all of us should question the beliefs that we hold dearly, especially if those beliefs were given to us in early childhood. Because the Creed tells us that Jesus was born of the Father before all ages. Okay, so when is the time before all ages? And wouldn't that be another age that is before all ages that he was born in? And how does that work anyway? And how does a father give birth to a son? And how did the men, these men with stained glass halos, how did they know that he was born of the Father before all ages? Did they have a time machine to go back before all ages and figure it out? And why did they force us to believe that he was born of the Father before all ages? And if we didn't believe the creed, it was not pretty for us, I'll put it that way. But the biggest question I have is, why do we have to believe any of the Christian doctrines whatsoever? And of course, that's the necessity to become a Christian. But the answer, if you really think that out, is that it gives our power to allow a system to exist that can control our lives and our minds. But I don't think Jesus cares one iota if I believe any of the Christian doctrines or not. But I think he's very interested in, did I live a Christ-like life, a Sermon on the Mount life? Because all he seems to say we need to do to be good with God is just treat others as we want to be treated, and love our neighbor as ourselves, and love the Creator. That's pretty darn simple theology right there. So I hope this made sense to you. If you want to understand why I say Christ and Christianity are two entirely different things, and how I can follow a non-religious Jesus Christ with no belief required, this will give you the answers, this video here. And if you want to check out the one on Judaism, and that will tie in well with this, it's right here. And let me know what you think. Leave the comments. If this resonates with you, please share it with other people and consider subscribing too.